Hi there, I'm Jeanette Lane, a craft designer at CraftStash, and in today's video I'm going to be talking a little bit about paper piecing. Now maybe you've heard of paper piecing in reference to quilting. I believe it's a quilting technique, but with paper crafts, what it is, I'm going to call it a die cutting technique because you do need a die to do this. It's easiest with a die, and it has to be sort of like a scene die or an intricate die of some sort. You wouldn't be able to do paper piecing with just a plain circle die or a heart die, unless of course it was like a lacy sort of die with lots of different sections that you could die cut and paper piece together. And so what you do is you take your die and you die cut it several times using different colors and then different colored cardstock, and then you layer those on top of each other to kind of, so it looks like you colored your die, but instead of using markers to color the different sections of your die cut scene, you are using paper. So here's the card that I'm going to be working on in this video and sharing how I did this, but I used this pretty quick Stork die, and what I love is that this die is really intricate. It has a lot of snippable pieces, and all I did was just die cut it several times. This video is going to be very repetitive in that I'm going to be die cutting this die over and over again in different colored cardstock, even some pattern cardstock, and then just layering different colored pieces on top of certain sections to just highlight, give some color to my stork and my little bundle, and also the colorful bunting in the background. So there's something very zen, very therapeutic about paper piecing because it's just, I don't know, you really have to focus on what you're doing and you're working with different colored cardstock, and it's just really relaxing. So let's jump into the tutorial and I can show you and also share some tips on paper piecing along the way. Now, when it comes to paper piecing, you sort of need to plan out your base color. A safe color to do to start off your paper piecing is white, to do your first layer in white. But for me, I'm going to do it in light purple because I want my frame to retain this purple color and also these little streamers here. I don't know, it was just something that I wanted to do. I really love this color, and so I wanted my base to be purple. But if you want to play it safe when it comes to paper piecing, then I would recommend doing your base color in white. Using white as your base layer is a great idea as well, because if you happen to run out of a certain colored cardstock, you can always do a little bit of faux paper piecing with a marker, a colored marker of some sort. So now it's time to die cut my first layer. There's going to be a lot of die cutting in this video, and I'm using the Sizzix fold away. And what I wanted to mention is, you're probably wondering, like, Jeanette, why aren't you die cutting 2 layers at a time to speed up the process? And the reason is that there's some texture detail on this on the stork, and the little baby bundle, and I don't want to lose that. And what happens when you layer 2 pieces of paper and you're die cutting, sometimes you lose some of this textured embossed detail that's built into the die when you layer 2 pieces of paper together. So it's just easier for me to die cut everything one at a time. So here is my light purple base, and now I'm going to start die cutting different sections with my die. So I'm going to start with the stork because he is pretty big, and notice that I'm not using a hole, so I'm not using a whole sheet, a whole piece of cardstock to die cut my die again. I'm just focusing on the little stork body. Okay, so next up I want to do the yellow bunting banner and also the pink. So what I'm going to do is save myself one die cutting pass and arrange my papers so that I'm sure that the pink is going to be cut and also the yellow bunting. So let's run this through. Next, I'm going to cut the orange, and I'm going to make sure that my beak and my stork's legs are on the paper because that's the pieces that I want to layer on his little beak and his little orange legs. Such a cute die. And something else that I want to suggest when you're paper piecing is to work on more than one card at a time, and then that way you can do a whole pass instead of little sections like I'm doing. It's just more efficient that way, and you will get 2 great paper pieced cards at once. So again, I'm arranging my scraps. I'm going to die cut this teal banner here, and also my pink balloon. So I'm just arranging my scraps underneath my die so that I can die cut two pieces, two sections at once. Now, something to try also is to do a little bit of paper piecing in pattern cardstock. I don't know why, I just felt like when I was making my card that this solid colored paper made my card feel a little bit flat. But when I added some pattern paper to my paper piecing, it just made it much more interesting, and I don't know, it just gave it like a fancy factor. Also, I recommend as you're paper piecing that you save all of the fallout, all of the little scraps from your die cutting, because you might see a portion of your die that you can paper piece. For example, this little balloon highlight here on the balloon, I filled it in with some nouveau drops, but in retrospect, I could definitely paper piece that with a different color. And so I was digging through my little my fallout stash, trying to find those pieces of the balloon highlight, and now I can use them on my card. So really excited about that. So all of my pieces are die cut, and now what I'm gonna do is snip up some of these portions, some of these sections, and layer them on top of my base layer with some adhesive. Now, when you're doing paper piecing, I definitely recommend that you use an adhesive that gives you a little bit of wiggle room, so something that doesn't dry too quickly, because when you're layering these up, these paper pieces up, you want to make sure that they're straight. I know sometimes it's easy to not get them lined up correctly, so you want to be able to have that room, that grace period in your glue, a grace period, to be able to make sure to line up all your layers just exactly, precisely right. What I'm doing next is just taking all of my die cuts that I have and just snipping the pieces that I need to layer onto my base layer, my light purple base layer. And I love how snippable these dies are. Now it's time to glue everything down, and earlier I mentioned to use glue that gave you a little bit of a grace period so that you can wiggle around and line up your layers perfectly. So I'm going to be using the Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue, which is one of my favorites. When I'm paper piecing, I tend to start with the larger sections and then work my way down. So starting with the Stork just seemed like a better idea, because he is the focal point of our card, and then I'm moving on to the beak and the baby bundle. Now, if you want to make some of your sections of your paper piecing really pop out, then you can cut multiple layers of the same layer. So this little bundle here, I'm feeling like I want it to pop just a little bit more, because the Stork and the little baby bundle are really the focal points of this card. And so what I'm going to do is just die cut my bundle one more time. I just feel like it just needs a little extra layer. My paper pieced portion. It's really fun. I think it's really cute. And now I'm going to put this onto my backing card, just a backing card, so that it really pops. But before I glue that on, I wanted to stamp a little sentiment all along the background of my card. So I'm going to be using this Nouveau Hybrid ink in Spring Heather, and it's purple, so it's going to match the card background here and kind of make it like a tone on tone sort of background, just very subtle. And then for my sentiment stamp, I'm going to be using this Congratulations, and this stamp set is the Floral Frame Sentiments from Apple Blossom. And so what I'm going to do now is mount my little sentiment. It says congratulations, and then I'm going to use my Spring Heather and just create a repeating background with the word congratulations. So here is my completed background, and now I'm going to just layer that onto there with a little bit more of this liquid glue. And then once I'm done doing that, then I'm going to, I don't know if you noticed that I saved the little balloon highlight, and that's because as you can see, the balloon is just empty there, so I couldn't put the piece in there until I had a background to it. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work out. It would just fall through. So now that I'm gonna glue on my backing card, I can add that little balloon highlight and finish the rest of my card. So here are my balloon highlights. I've put them in their appropriate crevices. They're so tiny, you probably can't see that. And I do recommend using some tweezers if you have those on hand, or a die pick. It'll make it so much easier to just maneuver your pieces and be a little bit more precise about their placement. So next I'm going to just trim my paper piece card front down, and then I'm going to mount it to my card base and my matte layered card base. And then I'm going to add some Nouveau drops and also some high gloss drops so that my little balloons can have a little realistic gloss and shimmer. So here is my card background. As you see, it's rectangular, but on my card there's a curve, a curved edge. And so what I did to create that curved edge is just use my paper piece card front and just use it as a template as I'm cutting. And then this way I can kind of mimic that same curvature. If you have a corner punch, this would also work. But I don't know, it works really easy in case you don't have a corner punch on hand like I do. It's just a little quick shortcut. Now for my card base, this is just a piece of patterned cardstock that I've trimmed down to size. And now I'm going to mount my card front to my card base, and I'm going to be using some foam tape just to give it a little bit of pop. So I've added a yellow bow to my card, and now what I'm going to do is gloss these balloons up with some Anita's High Gloss, and you can also use Tim Holtz Glossy Accents for the same effect. And you do not want to heat set this because it might bubble, so just let it air dry. Keep it out of reach for at least 30 minutes to let it set and dry. But I really love just how you can get some realistic glossy balloons with that. Now for my little banner here, I'm going to use these Nouveau glitter drops, and this is the color Aqua Mist. So I'm just squeezing a little bit out, being pretty generous actually, and then just gonna let that set, let that air dry. You probably want to give this about 30 to 45 minutes as well. Okay, there is my completed card. I'm finally done with my card, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It is a little bit different than the original, but that's okay. And everything that I used today is available on the CraftStash website, which is craftstash.co.uk, where you'll find heaps and heaps of inspiration and how-tos. I'm Jeanette Lane for CraftStash, and I will see you very soon. Bye.